Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for a very important and timely conversation about Tanzania. I'm going to be your host today, Nick Cheeseman. It's a pleasure to have you with us. We have a number of leading activists and researchers that will be providing their insights, but we're also really committed to giving you, the audience, ample time to provide reflections and express solidarity to those in Tanzania whose experiences and advocacy must be amplified. A special hello to those joining us in Tanzania right now, but I think for some people, internet access has come back. We know that it may not be safe to speak, so please protect your safety at all times. If you would like to send us comments anonymously, our DMs are open and we will anonymously read out things that we are sent from people who think it's too unsafe to comment publicly. Please now share this X space to your timeline so that we can encourage more people to come and join us to hear what has been happening in Tanzania and to participate in this conversation. As I speak, maybe 700 people have already been killed and the number could be even higher. Many more have been injured. These numbers alone should tell us that this was not really an election. If anything, it was a violent coronation with polling stations for garnish. Tundu Lissu is in jail on treason charges. The main opposition party on the mainland were banned. A campaign of intimidation was begun before the elections, and after the protests at the invalid and illegitimate outcome, we saw a wave of violent repression of legitimate protest. In terms of the actual results, President Samia has declared the winner with over 97% of the vote on a turnout nearing 87%. This despite numerous reports of low turnout and small queues, in part, of course, because the main opposition party was prevented from appearing on the ballot. Even usually lenient observer groups were pulled. The mission of SADC, the South African region, stated that in the view of the mission, observations as detailed above enables us to conclude that, in most areas, voters could not express their democratic will. The statement of the SADC observation team continues, overall, the 2025 general elections in the United Republic of Tanzania fell short of the requirements of the SADC principles and guidelines governing democratic elections. As we know, on election day and immediately afterwards, protests against the elections and the way that they were conducted erupted in cities like Dar es Salaam. Security forces responded with extreme force, using tear gas, live ammunitions, imposing a curfew, and we also saw the internet shut down and a heavy military presence on the streets. Opposition and civil society groups have put the number of those killed at 700. Some are even talking about more than 1,000. The reason we do not know for sure is that the government has engaged in a wave of intimidation and censorship designed to prevent this information from reaching the outside world. Those of us who have been involved in collating photographic and video evidence of the violence over the last few days already know that no matter what the number of deaths, the crimes against humanity that have been committed have been horrendous and numerous. For us at the Resistance Bureau, this moment is therefore about amplifying the voices of those who the government is attempting to silence, connecting both Tanzanian participants, African and international allies, and enabling a conversation about accountability, democracy, and resistance. In doing so, it's important we place these events in their appropriate context. CCM rule in Tanzania has historically been underpinned by the use of coercion and violence whenever the party has been threatened, and so it would be a mistake to see what we are seeing today as a complete aberration. But we also need to ask serious questions about whether recent developments have been facilitated by growing cross-border repression across the East African region, and here I'm thinking particularly about the relationship between Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, and the retreat of international donors and others away from principles of democracy and human rights. We also need to think not only about the tragedies that we've seen and what happens next in terms of ending the violence, holding those responsible accountable, and building a more democratic political system for the future. To start with, we'll go to Liberatus. Liberatus, it's wonderful to have you with us today. A prominent Tanzanian human rights activist currently based in the US, previously a Chadema candidate, and someone who's been a really important source of information for many of us during the Tanzanian internet shutdown, when he's been using his voice to inform people and keep people connected about what's happening. Liberatus, for many people who are joining us now, they may not be up to date with exactly where we are, what's happened over the last 48 hours. Of course, you've actually had the inauguration today. Maybe you could kick us off just by giving a sense of what's actually happened over the last couple of days and how things stand as we speak.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I hope you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Nick, and I really appreciate Resist Bureau for this opportunity to talk about what's going on in Tanzania. The situation is dire, and this did not just happen on election day. It was something has been happening, and the world never had it. So on election day was just a break point. Just October, from October 1st to October 29th on election day, there's a documented, Chadema, main opposition party, has documented more than 50 people who were kidnapped and other were killed. And we have seen people's bodies somewhere in Bagamoyo, and that was just in October, from October 1st to October 25th. So here comes on election day, past Wednesday. It's a little bit of a long story. What's happened is citizens said they were gonna prevent election from happening because the whole this, like you just explained, Nikki, there was the opposition being jailed, opposition being barred from running, and all this stuff, and the citizen had to take it to their hands. It's a little different with most of the protests which happens post-election. Usually it's between a political party against the government or against the ruling party. But this kind of protest in Tanzania was citizens against the ruling party or citizens against the government, because the citizens are so discontent with how our electoral system is. I know most of you might understand that we have some ridiculous laws, like once the president is announced, there's no any institution, including the court, can challenge that the results, and this is where we are. So in past 4 days or 5 days, we had different institutions came to Tanzania to observe the election. We had people from SADC, they call Electoral Observation Mission from SADC, and we have one of the CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi, the ruling party, most friendly party from South Africa, ANC. ANC has stated very clearly, and I can quote them. They say, for reasons that are currently unknown, a breakdown in communication occurred. The delegation was unable to observe any aspect of the elections. And this is from ANC, the sister party of Chama cha Mapinduzi. And you have statement from SADC. They clearly stated that they are observers. They could not observe anything. And the SADC deployed observers team in 27 regions out of 31 regions in Tanzania. Them too stated very clearly there was no election. They couldn't observe election because in midday on election day, there was an internet blackout. So this being said, I would like the world to know, the bottom line is there was no election in Tanzania. All this number we see that President, actually Samia, not even the president, got 31 million votes. It's practically impossible. I know the geographical area of my country. For example, they saying Samia got 30 million votes plus. You had internet shutdown. You do not have any internet. It's logistically impossible to correct all the data from the rural area, from the village area, to the INEC in Dodoma. And you're talking about this is a huge country. You don't have electricity. Take an example of Kenya. In 2022, Kenya had 14 million votes, and it took them 5 days to count those votes and declare the winner. Tanzania had more than 37 million votes. It took us 3 days to come out with the results. And this is the reasons Samia could not be inaugurated on our cultural basis. We usually go to our national stadium. A lot of people come to the national stadium, people cheering, and the president taken off. But this year is a difference. We don't even know. Some say Samia was sworn in or inaugurated in a military base, and this is very abnormal. One thing I want the world to know, and I want the world to stand with Tanzania in solidarity. This election did not happen. I'm so worried that that now the internet is back, and if the world does not stand up, does not stand with Tanzanian people, it's going to be war. Reports are coming. There's more than 700 people have been killed. We have seen the area day on the election day on 29th. We have seen video of people who drive government cars like a Range Cruiser, point the guns on civilians who were peacefully protesting. And these guys are on the record. We have the records. We have the video seeing the police officer pointing the gun, shooting on civilians. And now you have mortuaries, you have hospital is overwhelmed with the corpse. We have this mortuary overwhelmed with wounded people. The worst is the police now and the government is going behind to the hospital, picking people who are still alive, and we don't know where they're taking it. And the situation is very dire. And this is what scares me the most, because some people survived the bullet wounds, and now they have been taken from the hospital, and we don't know where they're going. I would say that for now, Nikki.
Thanks so much. And just to say, for people who have not been able to follow today, the report that I had was that the swearing in only had 4 presidents in attendance. Normally it would be much higher. The presidents in attendance came from Zambia, Burundi, Mozambique and Somalia. Most other presidents didn't go. Of course, that's partly because the process was rushed, but perhaps that also tells us something about how this is being seen in the region, even though of course, people will not necessarily publicly call it out. Thanks so much for that. We're going to our next speaker now. Our next speaker, we're not going to name our next speaker because of the security conditions, because it's not safe for people to come on and talk to us today and use their real names if they're located in Tanzania. I think that's something that should make us, think really hard and long about the situation that we're currently witnessing, that people are unable to come onto this Twitter space and talk in their own name. But thank you so much for joining us. It's a real honor to have you with us. I'm moving over to you now. Bibi Titi Voice, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you so much, Nick. I can hear you properly. Thank you so much.
Great. Over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you for organizing this platform to discuss, and we are glad that the internet is back in the country after 6 days of blackout. I should let people understand that what happened in Tanzania is not something which was not predicted. We had a lot of research done on the ground. We had analysis. We have all the data, which told us if we are not going to control the situation, it's going to be worse. So what is happening is basically the script of what was anticipated if there was no intervention. This scenario came into light, maybe I can say almost a year, when people were totally discontented with the ruling party and how the governance of the country was going on. And at any particular time when the citizens, as liberators said, wanted to voice their voices of their discontent, they were abducted, tortured, sodomized, killed, disappeared. All of those things happened, which were basically not familiar with the people. understanding we have a very young generations, they started to revolt. And to these people, when they were revolting, they were very clear that they did not want to be governed with the current constitution. They wanted a new constitution, but they wanted justice. That was the voice which was coming out, justice. So they had very clear demands, and all possible means to mitigate the situation was done. So there should be nobody in any sector, anywhere, who should come out and say this came out without negotiation. The negotiation failed. I'm not talking about the negotiation which were held between the political parties, which included Chadema, but I'm talking about the civic space, which was shrinking, and the struggle to open up for that civic space, which was also not only done by human rights defenders, but the religious leaders and other neutral parties, but it fall on a deaf ear. So what we are seeing today is a result of a dictatorial regime, which is led by very stupid people, sorry to say so, who have no end game. They have put this country in this mess. People are talking about 700. We're talking about the toll which is reaching 3,000 people. 3,000 people in less than a week. This is massacre. This is massacre. And we should not sit here discussing this, the euphoric Tanzania, land of peace, land of whatsoever. It's a land of massacre. And we need to address it as a massacre. And if we can qualify it, is a genocide. And it's a genocide because it only touched one part of the country, Tanganyika. We're talking about losing the lives of 3,000 plus Tanganyikans. The world should not keep quiet. If we keep quiet for this one, we are endorsing a country, the world, a continent of impunity. Now, we are in this situation. We, as human rights defenders, have been trying so much to make sure that we bring this country to its stability. But we can't discuss in the situation where the ruling party and the government deny that nobody has died, nobody has been injured. It's only the infrastructure which has been destroyed by foreigners. So we are in a state of denial. And if we don't address this denial, this is going to happen. We have Uganda coming on board. We have Kenya coming on board. We have all these countries within the SADC and East African community will pass through the same. But if we intervene Tanzania today, because Tanzania was seen as a safe haven, blah, 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 we will serve what is going to happen in Uganda, what's going to happen in Kenya. And these young people have no borders. The Tanzanians will go to fight in Uganda, as the Kenyan young people fought for the Tanzanians. So this East African solidarity will become a SADC solidarity and will become an African solidarity. But we want that solidarity of young people based on principles of justice. So if we don't intervene now, we should not see and start crying why the Africa is shedding blood. But what can we intervene now? If I just quickly come to my discussion. The first thing is to understand that there was no election in Tanzania. And the SADC mission was very clear. No election was held in Tanzania. And we should shame presidents who congratulates sham elections. This is the time we call their names and say, please, have decency. You are president, but have a decency. But Tanzania needs a new constitution. Without new constitution, we are not going to move an inch from where we are. But what is more important, we need to immediately cease abductions, killing, disappearance, and torture, which is state-affiliated, run by the task forces, but it is state-funded with mercenaries from foreign countries. So we have foreign armies in our country. So we are talking about the situation whereby we don't recognize the election results and they should be annulled. And we need to have a structural transformation. But one thing I want to put into consideration, we should stop provocating our young people. Any statement from Samia is a provocation. Any statement from the police is a provocation. And these young people are determined. They are saying they will continue to demonstrate until their demands are met. And they say, they're very clear, they will respond as how the state machineries respond to them. Thank you so much for now.
Thanks very much for that, and a really powerful statement. And just to fill everyone in who perhaps hasn't been focusing on East Africa that much, one of the great concerns I think a lot of us have right now is growing evidence of security collaboration between the governments of Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania in a way that is closing off opportunities for activists to be able to speak and to be able to be safe. So we had, for example, Kizza Besigye, the Ugandan leader, essentially illegally renditioned from Nairobi to Uganda. We saw some of the Kenyans who had gone to Tanzania to stand with people like Tundu Lissu. I think the Tanzanian authorities were clearly pre-warned by the Kenyan authorities that they were going, and some of those people were detained and later tortured, and the stories of what happened to them is horrifying. So a sense of greater collaboration across the East African space in order to constrain the space available to activists and leaving people on the civil society side feeling that they're unsafe no matter which of the three countries that they're in. And that's also had a connotation in this particular election where there were suggestions that some forces from across the border were used in some of the efforts to put down the protests. I think we don't have complete confirmation of that as of now, but a lot of people on the ground are saying that some of the people who they saw with guns were not able to speak Swahili, didn't seem to be from Tanzania. And so that's raised a lot of concerns about exactly which forces were used to do this, amidst some suspicion that perhaps some Tanzanian forces would have been reluctant to shoot on Tanzanian citizens in quite the way that we've seen. But as I say, that is unconfirmed. So one of the things that would be really interesting is to hear from people whether they have information and evidence. But that trend towards a web of East African collaboration that's making it more difficult for democracy activists and human rights activists is something that's really important to keep track of. Joseph, I want to come to you next because you haven't spoken, if that's okay. And then after that, I'm going to come to Dan. Dan, just to forewarn you, I'm going to ask you about the fact that in your piece that, inspired the title of this, and if people haven't read it, please go and read Dan's piece on the Journal of Democracy. You mentioned that the scale of the protest is unprecedented. And I'd like you to tell us a little bit about why you think that's the case and exactly what the different factors are that led to something on this scale. But over to you, Joseph, first, because I know you've got a lot of important things to share with us today.
Okay, thank you so much, Nick and Jeff and everyone. I think the most important things we should all reflect is no human should be killed because someone wants to maintain power. And I think also it's fair to say no person who kills people to maintain power should continue, to rule against the ashes of the people she killed. The first message before I say anything is some people has to be held into account. Samia and all others who supported her. What has happened in Tanzania for the last 5 days, and maybe many of you have seen, someone here have said about 3,000 people, which I think is an understatement because you have seen the video in some of the hospitals. Bodies are piling up like fish outside the hospitals. No, you can actually fail to a place to put your foot. This is one hospital. It's several. It's almost throughout the country in major regions. Sadly, and we have listened what Samia was saying today, what the government is saying is still on a total denial, saying, and actually I have read the statement by the foreign minister saying some, selected incidents of violence. People, why are Tanzania demonstrating? Because this is very important to understand. When Samia came to power, she deceived almost everyone. She was playing the mother role, a bit speaking soft-spoken, by unleashing terror with a smile face. Jeff, you remember we have spoken about some of the people that she was systematically targeting, and of course she went to oppose. No president in Tanzania history has used lawfare like her. Lissu is in prison. Mbowe was in prison before with terrorism, then Lissu with treasons. Then in the build-up of election, you mentioned about what happened with the Kenyan, the Ugandan, who tried just to observe election, to observe the Lissu trial. What fell into them? So, is violence. So, she was prepared through the mighty power of the state to suppress anything. So, what has happened with Mwangi, with the lady from Uganda, is a preparation of sending a message what will happen for anyone who will try to block her to power. From actually October, you can follow the record in Tanzania, many people has been abducted and disappeared, of course, including Pole Pole and others from very high-profile people, that for just speaking out, saying you have not followed procedure, even within her own party. Then now, some people are saying, and I'm very sad, it's not only that the African did not participate, only 3, but, we are always crying about the history of colonialism, but we have created a dictatorial empire called the African Unions and the African states. That murder has happened to this magnitude. And then everyone in Africa was saying, Samia has won. This is the trust that the people of Tanzania has. Despite evidence, I don't want to be told by any observers that there was no free and fair election. There was no election. We know it, And, after demonstration that has happened, that interfered literally everything. They come and say 31 million people turn out. You can be at least, cruel, but intelligent a bit to show, like you are not mad to that standard of saying at least I won. 2 million vote because people did not vote, did not turn. So, what I think is the most important thing for now is there is evidence, there are videos at least, despite orchestrated process by the states to bury evidence, transporting some of the dead bodies somewhere, at least there is evidence of mass killing, that Tanzania has been turned into a killing field, a crime scene. If international human rights law has any meaning, is to held accountable to people who brought us this far. And there was clear evidence how this was being planned. There were many calls since Samia came to power saying, please, let's restructure legal and constitutional reforms so that we have just electoral processes. Some people using, some academics come and say reforms is not, Mkandala and different others, reform is not necessarily now, we'll go for constitutional reforms after election. So that they will steal elections and then they can come and parrot some sort of things that now we are going for reforms. Some people think they are running their family issues here. But is human life that are put into test? Is thousands of young children, young men and women being lost because someone wants to maintain power? This, I think, there should be some degree of accountability. Then there should be some degree of shame to anyone, whether supporting by sending the mercenaries or given some political, recognitions. And it's not only Africa. You can look into either is a total silence by some of the countries purporting to be democrats, Or some saying, oh, we take notes about what happens, we take note about the announcement of the Electoral Commission, but we are concerned with what happens. How can you say that? Is people being killed? The street is full of dead bodies. And then someone trying to play a neutral role. I think this world has to come to order, at least for once. We have to value. Some have interest in economy, but I think the interest in economy, if you have in Tanzania, it must be with the people. It's the people who build that business. If people have been killed, the ashes cannot trade business. And this is not Samia's country. As someone who have already built a reign of terror that everyone knows, there is a team systematically targeting anyone who can speak. What do you expect? Because you can be oppressed. Why do people go to the roads knowing exactly we have the most terrible state that will come and kill you? People go to the road knowing we might be killed. Because anyway, if I keep quiet, I'm not sure that I will not be killed. So they went to the road because they are already in a corner. There is no place to run. This is why people are not demonstrating about the outcome of election. They are demonstrating about election itself from being conducted. Some people gave some offer. Lissu, I remember Warioba was saying, Lissu came and said, we are ready to give Samia 2 years in addition of what he has, so that we go in election in a restructured legal system that will do justice for all the people. They did not like that, of course. They want power forever, but they did not want that because they are not interested in legal reforms. You listen to what she said today, and actually the statement she gave 2 days ago, she said, so straight, security people do what you can, literally, to suppress dissenting opinion against her reign of terror. I think the most important thing I think now we should reflect is how can we make them accountable for what happens that at least is happening in 2025 digital age. There is evidence. I think that is very important.
Thanks so much, Joseph. Great contribution. We'll come back to you later, but I think Liberatus wants to come in now and make a point that connects to some of what we've been discussing, and I think then maybe needs to jump off for a minute. So Liberatus, I'm going to come to you, and then Dan, I'm going to come to you after that. Liberatus, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki, and I appreciate Jeff for inviting me over this space. Actually, I just want to point out 2 or 3 things a little quick because I have another interview. Number one, it's clear that there's no election. There's no place in this world you can have election when you have military mercenaries shooting on peoples. Number two, the world should act on what's going on in Tanzania. We don't want the world to act late and be sorry. This is very important. Number three, in Tanzania, we do not have Second Amendment. We don't have the right to bear arms. And people who got shot, killed, people who had the gun, they had SMGs. There's no citizen in Tanzania is allowed to possess SMG. This means all those people who were shooting were government agents. Number four, foreign mercenaries. There's some places where they pinned down some of these people who could not even speak Swahili. Joseph would help me when he comes back. I don't think there's anybody in the military or in the police in Tanzania who does not speak Swahili. It's clear that people who were shooting civilians, of course, there are police officers from Tanzania and some of the military, they were foreigners. And this is a proof because we have testimony from individuals who were in the ground. They pinned down some of them and they couldn't speak Swahili. That's clear. These people, some of them were not Tanzanian. This being said, I think I should end up here and I'll come back if there's you guys will be here. Thanks a lot, Jeff and Nick. We really appreciate that.
Thanks so much. We look forward to talking to you again later. So Dan, coming to you now, as I mentioned, you wrote in this really lovely piece important piece about this being unprecedented. Maybe you could take a step back and reflect on what are the different factors that explain why we saw so many people protest, and what does that tell us about the state of politics in Tanzania, the stability of the CCM regime, what we might see moving forwards.
Sure, Nick, and let me say first of all, thank you for including me on this in this event and alongside this list of esteemed speakers in this fraught moment. So you asked, let me unpack the claim that these protests are unprecedented in Tanzania. Well, first of all, it's been said in one way or another by a number of the speakers here today. But these protests and the movement which is constituted in those protests and by those protesters defines itself in very anti-regime political terms. These are not pocketbook protests. These are not issue-based protests. They want a change in some policy. They want constitutional reform. They want a reinstatement of Tanzania's democracy in the ways that they define it. And that's important because if one were to look back at protests, at least on the Tanzanian mainland, since the return to multipartyism, the largest have been localized, and they have been policy-based or pocket-based protests. When it comes to protests against large-scale mining in the Gator region, or against natural gas, the terms of natural gas extraction in the Mtwara region, or what have you, there have been no protests that define their cause in these political terms as a struggle for democracy, nor protests that are so wide in scale. In fact, I've been speaking to a few historian friends about this, and we agreed that to find protests that were so wide in scale in Tanzania, one would have to go back to the moment of decolonization and the struggle against British colonial rule. And indeed, even those protests, by and large, were peaceful in their conduct. To find protests that themselves were as violent as these protests have been, or indeed a crackdown on protests that was so wide that itself was so violent, one might need to go back to the Maji Maji rebellion against German colonialism. So that's on the claim that the protests themselves are unprecedented. They're unprecedented in their political nature, in their countrywide scale, in the violence that they at least temporarily assumed, and the violence of the crackdown, which others have already spoken to. You asked me to take a step back, Nick, and reflect on the wider significance of all this. And I think what I'd say is this, that until a few days ago, it was widely agreed that these two things were true of Tanzanian politics, and they defined regime movement dynamics. They defined the terms of the struggle between the regime to sustain itself and the struggle of the anti-autocratic movement to dislodge it. The first of those claims was that CCM was able to sustain the claim that it was legitimate by virtue of its popularity. I don't mean to say that it was truly popular, but I think it was skilled at reconstructing and reasserting that claim forever and anon at each election, in each rally, in its mass structure, and in many other ways. The second claim was that there were not mass protests in Tanzania, and certainly not sustained ones or nationwide ones. And I think going forwards, we can trust that neither of those claims will be the case. It will be extremely hard for CCM in the future to claim that it is a popular party, that its rule rests on a popular foundation. It's going to be very hard for CCM to claim that it is legitimate anymore. The mass protests against it and the way that it has responded to them both speak against that claim. And equally, even if the protests are ebbing or are diminishing, we will never again be able to imagine with confidence that there will not be such mass protests. And I think that is an inflection point in Tanzania's politics, and and it will forever change the dynamics and the nature of the struggle between the regime and the movement that's seeking to dislodge it. Now, there's a lot more that could be said about that, and I hope in light of that, some of our conversation might turn to the questions of what comes next, or rather what should be done next, and the roles that various sorts of actors, domestic and international, might play in what comes next. But I've spoken for a good while now, so let me leave it there. I hope that the other speakers in this very esteemed list of speakers and listeners might offer their collective intelligence in that conversation about what to be done next. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody is listening who wants to come back to Dan on that and make some suggestions, it'd be really interesting to hear from what has been happening and what has been working in other countries. One of the things that the Resistance Bureau tries to do is to bring together those lessons and examples of what can work across borders. So Dan, we might come back to you in a little bit if that's okay, but pick up some examples and responses. Right now, I'd like to go to you, Wanjiru. I know that you've got some great examples about things that can be done in other countries, and also about sort of expressing solidarity here. So over to you, Wanjiru, and then we will come to the audience. So if you've requested the mic, please be aware that we will be coming to you shortly. So please be ready to unmute yourself and speak if you have made that request. Obviously, a lot of you have, which is great. I will try and come to as many people as I can. So please just be aware. In particular, we are very keen to promote gender balance at the Resistance Bureau. So it would be great to have people putting their hand up to speak, who are women as well. So please do that, and we will come to you shortly. But over to you now, Wanjiru. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you everyone else who is listening. I think this is such a great day not even such great, to speak about Tanzania at its breaking point, because it's really broken. As I watched today, the president, Samia, taking up the mic and saying, she's the president now, and, getting sworn in, and my heart broke down to pieces because I'm a woman. And I also believe she's a woman as well. And I also asked myself, is she even a mother? Because I saw the pictures yesterday of the bodies of young people who are like me, or maybe even older or younger than me. I'm a Gen Z. And my heart totally broke down. My heart was in pieces. I couldn't imagine how many mothers are going to bury their own kids because somebody has refused to agree to the truth. Somebody has decided she better rule over ashes. She better rule over skeletons. She better rule over a broken community. She better rule over a broken nation. How much is power worth? How much is total power worth? Because if I'm a woman, I desire to be a leader one day. I'm from Kenya, by the way. I desire to be in power one day. I desire to change my country. I desire to change Africa. I desire Africa to be better. But with the new colonist people like Samia, like Ruto, like Museveni, I call them new colonists because the white person or the white man, the colonist, literally left us, 50 or 60 years ago. But after that, we have found people who talk like us, who look like us, who dresses like us, who have everything and like us, but they are pushing us to the borders. They are pushing us. They are killing us in such a massive way without mercy. How kindness, how heartless they are, So, I decided today in the morning when I woke up because I was so much disturbed with the videos I saw yesterday, I decided to go to The Hague. I will be going very soon. But before going, I also went to the website and decided to start reporting what is happening in Tanzania, accompanied with the evidence that I have collected. So far, so good. So if you go to the ICC website, there is a section where you get the OTP link. You can report. Tanzania at the moment has no crime on the ICC, so you can just write in that section. I think the section on the investigation, you write not related to a recent situation. And then on the incident name, I decided to write Tanzania post-election massacre because what happened was indeed a massacre. And then I did write what happened because my heart was so broken. So if we can do, I think the 500 of us, we can actually start writing towards the ICC. I know some people might say, Wanjiro, this is futile decision to make, but something has to be done because I also heard in Tanzania there is no that section of going to the court and denying the results of the sham elections that were held. So as a nation or as brotherhood in East African, we cannot keep quiet. We have to make sure the whole world knows. We have to make sure the lives of more than 3,000 people that were killed and a lot more, that are injured in the hospital, and 5 days of agony without internet, without communication, and the losses of businesses. Everything else has to be reported to the ICC. We have to make sure she has a case to answer, a case against humanity. This is a case against everything bad, So I would request if we can actually go and report and do something. In Kenya, I'm very known for sending what we call greetings, which would be, telling people you go fuck yourself, like honestly, yeah, I'm very known for sending the greetings, but this time loud, we are going to make sure as Kenyans youth, we also in solidarity with Tanzanian. We are going to stand for you. We are going to make sure the whole world knows what happens. So if we can actually to the office of the prosecutor in Hague, that would be very nice. And if anybody want to join me in the journey to go to Hague, you're very much welcome on my DM. My DM is very much open. Something has to be done. An initiative has to be held. I'm no lawyer. I'm a techie girl. So if you're also a lawyer, I would request you go on my DM and tell me how we can do this. So there is still a light in the tunnel. There is still a light in the tunnel because she has to be prosecuted in the right way. Yeah, let me finish. Let me just stop at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Wanjiro. Just to say, we're going to circulate in a minute. My friend and colleague Hopewell Chinono, the journalist from Zimbabwe, has been sharing a lot of the images and videos that we've seen coming out of Tanzania. He's put them on his Telegram account. We made the decision not to just share these on social media because they are so graphic and so upsetting. But if you would like to access them, if it would be useful for legal cases or be useful for journalists, we'll share the link to Hopewell's site where you can see a lot of the images and the videos. And we'll share if other people have other places where the images and videos are being stored and shared. We'll share those with you via the Twitter feed as well, so that people who want to go and search them out can. But please do keep in mind that they are very graphic and they are very upsetting. Citizen, I'm going to come to you next. Please, over to you. And then we'll go to others. So please, if you'd like to make a comment, particularly, responding to some of the things we've heard from our speakers, request the mic. And Citizen, coming to you now.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Am I loud and clear?
Yes, you could speak maybe a little bit closer to the mic, but we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone who is showing up for Tanzania in this critical moment. I want to thank everyone who is standing in solidarity with the East African community. Please let us all stand on justice front line, even if it is justice one time. Well, dictators are making a tendency of shutting down the internet during the election and announcing the results. Okay, this happened with Uganda under Museveni, who has been in power for 40 years now. 2021.
Just to say, Citizen, sorry, a couple of people are saying they're finding it hard. So could you try speaking just a bit louder, or maybe just a bit closer to the mic? Sorry about that. Just we're getting some feedback that some people can't hear you well.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's a bit better. As loud as you can. Thanks.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. Well, I appreciate this gesture. Please let us stand with people on justice front line, even if it is justice one time. George the poet said those words. Please, thank you for everyone who's showing up for Tanzania, and thank you for everyone who is standing in solidarity with the East African community against the injustice, against the brutality and the dictators, right? Right now, dictators are making it a tendency of shutting down the internet during the process of election results, right? This is a habit to hide the international community or making the world know that these guys won election illegitimately. So,
Citizen, are you there? We just lost you. Okay, Ronyo, let's go to you and we'll see if we can get Citizen back. Ronyo, over to you.
Can you
Yes, please go ahead.
like
Okay, Ronyo, sorry, you're coming in and out and we can't actually hear you that clearly. So let us come back to you in a minute. We'll try and get a better line and come back to you. Sorry about that, Ronyo. Bibi Titty Voice, maybe I could come to you for a second just to reflect on some of the things that you've heard. One of the things that obviously has been challenging so far is actually collecting systematic evidence to be able to prove some of the things that have happened. We also have, Dan's point about thinking, about what can be done sort of constructively moving forwards. Obviously, we've got a lot of people on this call from across the region, also a lot of journalists. I know we've also got a lot of policy folks and people from countries who are engaged in working with Tanzania on the call. Are there any things that you would like to see in the next couple of days, Baby Titty Voice, that people here might also be able to help with? Please go ahead and we'll try and come back to you, Citizen and Ronyo, if we can.
Thank you so much, Nick. Yes, we need global support as we are putting on two systems. The first system is the one to collect information where people can report the missed ones. So they can just upload a picture, a name and biodata so that we can be able to say this person between the 29th and today, this person is missing, or this person, the body was found, or this, so that we are trying to put a system where people, so that we can collect data from our people. So this is something which also we need support, because we need to go to all sites in Tanzania to enable people to document that information. So we are going to use, maybe because these are young people, so they didn't even have national IDs. So because that could have been the best option when the parents are saying, I have a son missing of this name and this ID. So we are going to pull all this data so that at least we can have to know how many we can say they are killed, they were murdered in the process, how many bodies were found and got proper burial, and how many bodies are missing. That is level 1. Level 2 is to identify the mass graves. We are working seriously on identifying mass graves. We have identified several, and satellite, we believe we're going to get many of the many more mass graves, which are in various places in the country. So we call upon our citizens to help us to locate if they have seen a occurring bodies, or they suspect there might be mass grave somewhere, and if they can just give us a periodization, maybe this happened on the 30th, this happened on the 2nd of November, etc. At this particular time, it will enable us to trace. So we are banking on technology to support us to get more data, to tell the world what transpired since 29. This does not deny the fact that the oppression, the killing, the torture, disappearance started way back. So this is just to say, this is the evidence we have at hand. This is the time when the world have heard from us. And the third thing, which is very important, we have been pushing for, is to hold accountable those who allowed the foreign forces from neighboring countries, the mercenaries, to get and operate in our country, because that's basically we are saying that our security has been compromised. So we are pushing to hold accountable those who allowed that to happen, because it's not only that we are trying to say Tanzania is unsafe, but we are trying to say we are paying people to protect the country, our military, our police forces who cannot protect us. So we need to hold these people accountable. We have another significant two areas which I want to put an emphasis on. The trauma part. This, as many people have said, it's not something which Tanzanians were prepared for. We are going through processes where we hear people having a lot of trauma, pain, stress. So we need to manage this, because otherwise, if we don't manage, it will manifest to another level of violence and retaliation, which we have seen so far coming up. And the other thing is about the small weapons. We have seen most of the police station vandalized. We have heard stories about having these small weapons, the guns, which have been imported to Tanzania to kill the citizens. In many cases, after these processes, these guns remained in the hands of people. And in the scenario we have in Tanzania, these small weapons, even if they will fall in the hands of innocent people, it is very difficult for them to take them back to the government when they want to collect it, because people believe they need to defend themselves using machetes, using bow and arrows. Now, if they get guns, they will not surrender the guns to the state. So we are going to have a problem. We have heard a problem in the Lake regions with small weapons, but now in Tanzania in particular, we have a lot of small weapons, which for this period of time, maybe if I would count, is about 6 to 12 months, the country have been importing a lot of small weapons for this particular activity of massacring, of killing the Tanzanians. As Joseph has said, this was a planned event. And if you go back how Samia came into power and the changes he made in the military, the changes he made in the police, and all of her speeches for the past 6 to 8 months, if we can get the data correctly, she has been praising the security forces for doing a greater job. And praising them means that for killing the citizens, the voters, that is. So this is not something we can say Samia didn't plan. It is a planned massacre to kill, to murder Tanganyikans. And let me end here for now. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks so much. There's really good practical suggestions about, what we need to do. I think that was really effective and would be very useful for people listening. Dan, I want to come back to you for a second, if I may. I'm going to ask you two questions that I know are kind of impossible, but I'm hoping you can use, the kind of length of time you study Tanzania to have a think about them. I mean, one thing we're hearing a lot of questions about is, are there going to be divisions within CCM? You and I both know that there are many divisions within CCM, and there have been for a very long time. But I guess what people are asking is, will this lead to people rejecting Samia's leadership, or will this lead to an incredibly intense succession battle from day one of the new Samia presidency? And will that generate instability and potentially splits within the ruling party? And the second thing that, we're hearing a lot of questions about, and again, I know it's a really tough question, is about military-civilian relations and how the military will feel. I guess there's two interesting questions here. One, will there be figures within the military who will resent being deployed in this way and see it as something which really brings them into disrepute in a way they don't want? And two, if we do see, in some cases, people and figures, mercenaries being brought in from other countries, what position does that put the military in? And is there anything you can tell us about, the military relationship to the government right now? Again, I know we're kind of asking you to gaze into a crystal ball, but any sort of thoughts you might have on what this actually means moving forwards for the government itself would, I think, be fascinating for people listening.
Thanks, Nick, for the questions, even if they are impossible to answer in any definitive sort of way. So on the question of the coalition within Hassan's regime and CCM and what happens next, there is always intense competition for succession within CCM. So yes, I think there will be, and I think, frankly, there will be many within CCM who will say, this is a disaster for us as a regime, even putting aside what a disaster it is for all of those who have been harmed or killed, or may yet be in these events. And they will be thinking it would be really convenient if we could look for a change in leadership that we can use to yet again launder this regime and give it, in effect, a new coat of paint. One way or another, every new Tanzanian president has offered the regime a way to freshen itself. And I'm sure that many will be saying that CCM as party and regime could really do with freshening up. We don't want to be the party that rules through force, that is alleged to bring in foreign mercenaries, that terrorizes its citizens and kills thousands. That was never my guess is that this was not plan A, that this was always what they turned to do in response to the protests which seem to have unfolded at a scale that they did not expect. So yes, I expect that there will be an intense competition within CCM. It doesn't even seem, I was about to say, it doesn't seem implausible that they might look for an earlier transition than 2030, but I'm not sure I can really back that up. But Tanzanian presidents have such power, they have such control even over the succession battles within the party. But I think it will be a live question within the party, no matter in what way things unfold. When it comes to the military, of course, Tanzania has a regime of the sorts which is normally thought to have an army which is tied at the hip to the party. It's the sort of revolutionary regime that, if you will permit me to get quite scholarly for a moment, Levitsky and Way refer to. One would never normally expect the Tanzanian People's Defense Force to break step with the party. But the way in which people were talking about the army, the way in which protesters were hailing army personnel and vehicles with Jeshi and during the process that one could see in the footage, makes me question all of that. I imagine it is making people in the regime and the army question all of that too. And the rumors that were circulating in the first days of the protests, either that army troops were shielding protesters, or that the heads of the army was forced to read statements, or even that he did not truly read them. The rumors alone are enough to crack the alliance between the regime and its armed forces. I can only imagine that the army doesn't like the idea that foreign mercenaries were brought into the country to occupy a role that they alone should play. So I think both of those questions will be alive, and we will all spend much time speaking about them in the days to come. Of course, I will refrain from gazing too far into the crystal ball and hazarding any sort of guess about what will happen. Over to you.
Thanks, Dad. Yeah, it'd be just a quick two-penny for me before Nana. I'm going to come to you next, so Nana, please do get ready. But yeah, I mean, one thing that we do know, of course, is that those battles around succession in parties like CCM, are particularly heated, partly because, to an extent, if you're going to maintain power through force, then I guess whoever is running thinks that they're going to become the president, and the opportunities that generates for them personally as well as politically is so great. And we know that those succession battles can be particularly damaging if they're not managed well. But we also know that one of the things that those kind of divisions does, is it exacerbates corruption. It can exacerbate instability, and that can have, really significant implications. And of course, as well as the headlines around the world and the impact that this will have on the Tanzanian economy, one of the things that we shouldn't sort of lose out of our reflections is the impact that kind of mismanagement the corruption, the impact that this will have on the Tanzanian economy will have on ordinary people, for the next couple of years. These are probably now going to be much tougher economic times than they should have been. And it's an important reminder, I think, to us all that, we care about this because we care about human rights and we care about democracy. But even if you don't care about those things, even if you just care about the economy and development, this is actually in some ways, a disaster and will have a really big impact on ordinary people's lives. And so it's important not to lose sight of the multifaceted impact of crises like this. Nana, coming to you now, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. I hope you are doing great. My fellow brothers and sisters, I hope we are all doing great. Whatever is going on in Tanzania is very, very devastating, and I really want to send a message across to Samia that we Africans are not weak or timid, So I speak to, us today from the spirit of a dream that we once shared, like a dream of a continent united and free, a dream where the sweat of our farmers would water the fields of our own prosperity, where the voices of our children will be heard in the halls of, learning and not silenced in the streets. Now, I listen to the wind blowing from Tanzania, and my spirit grows very, very heavy. I see and I hear that their voices are stifled. The whisper of the digital lifeline, the internet, which is being cut, which is a tactic of fear employed by our colonial masters of old, now, which is now being wielded by hands that should know better. Samia and her government speak of, the most sacred of rights, the rights of life, but they are not going to that lane. Those rights are being violated. Our children are falling, not to foreign invaders, but to those that are being sworn to protect them, which saddens my heart, Nick. Now, like I said, this is not the Africa for which we fought. This is not the Africa for which Nyerere, the teacher, fought. This is not the Africa of Patrice Lumumba, the martyr. This is not the Africa of Kwame Nkrumah and Gaddafi. That day, the pioneers of Pan-Africanism bled to build. So if Samia and co want to come and tear down the walls of, all these basic tenets that were being built for us to live on and to grow, to strive, to develop, and then impoverish us and treat us as slaves. I just don't understand. I don't get it. So those of them that hold the reins of power in Dar es Salaam and across our beloved continent, I want to tell them now that they cannot shut down the internet and claim to be open or transparent or whatever to the people. They cannot spill blood of their citizens and call it stability. They cannot hide the truth, for the truth is like the sun. It will always find a crack through which it will shine. This path on which they are on, it is the path of the heavy hand. It is the path of a dead end. it leads only to a graveyard of, potential, to the stifling of the very innovation and spirit that we take
Thank you.
our rightful place in the
Thank,
world. So, Nick,
thank.
Samia and co should, know that Tanzania is not for them. They have to do the right thing. They have to step down. They have to resign, and a new election should be held. Thank you,
Thanks
Nick.
so much, Nana. It was beautifully put. Thank you so much. Honorable Moses, coming to you next. Honorable Moses, I don't know if you're a member of Parliament, but I see Honorable Moses. Are you there? Do you want to
Oh,
unmute and
yes,
speak?
yes, I am there.
Over to you. You have
Thank
the
you very
floor.
much for having me. A very good evening to you all.
Good evening.
I am from Uganda, and I happen to be bordering Tanzania. I am from a district called the Sinjiro district. So we have been keenly following the developments in Tanzania, in our neighborhood. But to begin with, I want to disagree with the submission by Wanjiri of Kenya, where I was proposing that we should sign petitions to Hague and send them to Hague. In my view, we should get African solution to African problems. If the problems began in Africa, the solution should begin from Africa and they should be from Africa. This idea of window shopping other people to come and solve our problems is very archaic, and is in a way also bring back colonialism in another form. Therefore, I disagree with her. Secondly, I want to join the other people and other speakers. First and foremost, to congratulate Tanzanians upon this exercise, albeit the huge challenges that we are embedded in. In particular, I want to join President Museveni in congratulating Samia Suluhu. What is important tonight that I want to talk about is the issue of constitutional reforms in Tanzania. I was sickened and heartbroken when I was reading about the results, and I was told you cannot appeal the results. Once the Electoral Commission has announced the result, it's final. There is no where you can go. I think that is that's a bit unfair, and it should be looked into as soon as very possible. Because once I have gotten issues with the mechanism or with the results, I should have a window where to showcase my grievances and maybe get a solution to the same. But having said that, I think Tanzania has been an island of peace in the Great Lakes region. It's unfortunate that what transpired reminded us the Majimaji rebellion of 1905 to 1907 under the Chingishtira and the Reichs. But nevertheless, we want to say, in my culture, we do not allow or we do not propel the idea of crying for the powdered milk. If milk has powered, you do not keep crying. Maybe you can address the issue of why the milk powered, but you cannot keep crying. It is my considered view and submission that the Tanzanians should now get back together, heal the hearts, pole, and rebuild their country, other than keep lamenting and lamenting. Let's allow, give an opportunity. Samia Suluhu, we get back and we build the country. Because once Tanzania is stable, Uganda will be stable and East Africa will be stable. I must also say, remember the crude pipeline oil of Uganda. We refused to give it to Kenya and we gave it to Tanzania because we thought Tanzania, our pipeline of our oil will be very safe. Having said that, I want to wish you a nice evening and thank you for putting this forum where we can meet and discuss and share ideas. I thank you and I wish you well.
Thanks for joining us today. Thanks. I think if I was to channel my Kenyan, Ugandan, and Tanzanian friends, one thing I would probably say is that, when people say, don't cry over the poured milk. I think one thing that people would say is the milk is always pouring, right? It's a mistake to think that you have an incident and then you need to get better and shake hands afterwards, because in each of these countries, the politics of repression doesn't simply stop at the election or after the shooting. There is a constant process of low-level intimidation, repression, brutality, even at moments when countries appear to be peaceful. I wrote a piece a little while ago called about Tanzania and the Journal of Democracy, called The Roots of Repression. And one of the points that we tried to get across there was that this myth of Tanzania as this peaceful, non-violent ocean in the middle of East Africa is partly based on not actually seeing Tanzania and Tanzanian politics very clearly, and not actually looking at what's happening on the ground and what is actually sustaining the government. And actually, a lot of the time, one of the things that we see when we do look more closely is that there are a lot of political prisoners, that there is a lot of censorship, that media is being controlled, that people who are critical of the government are being sidelined and either intimidated or not allowed to enter business. So the idea that countries are peaceful in between these moments and everyone should then shake hands and make up is problematic. In fact, actually, we see constant grievances, constant milk being poured. And I think one of the things a lot of people would say is if we don't actually have accountability and justice, we cannot have a foundation for building a system that is fairer, and so there is no foundation for reconciliation. But it's not for me to say that, it's for people from the region. So let me shut up and pass on to Agatha, and move Agatha next. Agatha, over to you. I know you've been waiting a little while. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I'm glad I am speaking about, I'm speaking after my fellow Ugandan here, because I want to start by apologizing on Ugandan's behalf that there's someone who is more concerned about a pipeline that is supposed to pass through Tanzania after listening to people saying over 3,000 people have been murdered. And then the same person is saying they should, shake hands and move on. And of course, when he talks about Tanzania being peaceful, it's the same thing they tell us here. The regime apologists and all of them, they are always telling us to keep the peace. So towards the elections, they'll get these influencers that will keep writing about remain peaceful during elections, remain peaceful during elections. The Uganda Human Rights Commission 2 weeks ago invited me to speak on a dialogue that was talking about how to have a peaceful election. And at that dialogue, I asked the Uganda Human Rights Commission, which is constitutionally mandated to ensure that people's rights are protected. So I asked, how come there's nothing, no word human rights in this invite? There's nothing about human rights. Why do you keep saying we keep peace, but you're not telling the people that you're telling victims of human rights abuses to remain peaceful, but you're not telling the perpetrators to stop. You're not calling them out. You're not holding them accountable. And that's the same for Tanzania and what the previous speaker was saying. It has been peaceful because it was not fighting back. For them, that is peaceful. And fighting back shocked everyone that they did. And so before, if it wasn't for that guy, my starting point would have been that I start by saying that we all feel heavy-hearted for Tanzania, for the young people that have lost their lives needlessly. And not just lost their lives, but there has been no remorse, there has been no apology, there has been no condolences. These people are so diabolical that they will step on dead bodies to speak and to swear in and issue more threats. The security will deal with more, so we will kill more. We will kill however many we have to kill to remain in power. So I first really would like to stand with the people of Tanzania, the people that have lost their loved ones, those that won't even be able to get their bodies to bury them. But to also say that we have been standing with them. We have been very proud. They have really shown us what standing up for yourself is. And they went there knowing what would happen. It's not that they didn't know. It's that they saw that as the only way, as the only thing to do. And we are very proud of that. I think for me, and maybe for us all on this space, is to ensure that their deaths doesn't go in vain. That they died fighting for justice, for equality, for their rights to be protected, for the people that have been disappeared to be brought back, for those in jail, for no reason, arbitrarily, illegally, to be released. So I like that some people here have already given suggestions of what is supposed to be done. Wanjiru talked about the ICC, and it's true, some of us might not agree with the ICC. But for some of these things, just like we do not agree with our courts at home, in Uganda where I live, there's nothing that will go to court and you expect a positive result. But my friends kept telling me that we do this for the record. When we were tortured in Tanzania 5 months ago, we took a case to court, to the East African Court of Justice, Boniface Mwangi and I, and our good lawyers that were helping us with that. 5 months later, there has never been a word from the East African Court of Justice. So you go there knowing that this East African court, the judges there are appointed by these same dictators that are clearly working together. So you're not really expecting justice there, but I think sometimes we are saying, let's collect this evidence, have it on record. In future, if we have institutions that work, we will have where to start. So I say we should do that. Maybe we should also look at the African Court for Peoples and Human Rights. It's been progressive in its statements about Tanzania and collecting evidence. Someone was talking about us identifying the people that have been killed. I was saying the same thing in the platform we are on, that let's humanize them. Let's talk about them, their name, who they are, so that the world sees them and doesn't forget them. Let's mourn them. Let's, hold a vigil for them. And let's keep pushing. Like, for me, I think that that's the only way to honor them. That we push for people to be held accountable in Tanzania, for Samia and all the security forces to be held accountable. I have had so many people speak about Ugandan security forces being there. I know we are not going to find any hard evidence of that, but I can assure you that I would not doubt for 1 second that they were not there, because
Agatha, are you there? I think we might have just lost you. Agatha? Okay, Dan, I see you've got your hand up. Maybe I could come to you while we see if we can get Agatha back. Dan, are you there? You're breaking up a bit for me. I don't know if others can hear you. Okay, Dan, I can't hear you clearly, so I'm going to go to Samuel and come back to you and Agatha if we can get slightly better lines. Samuel, over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well. Go for it. Thanks so much. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Um, this topic is something that is really growing, and that it is good that you have brought it up and that people discuss it. What we are witnessing in Tanzania isn't just a domestic crisis. It is a culmination of a careful, cultivated authoritarian playbook that has been perfected and exported across East African countries, and primarily, I can say, coming from President Kagame and Museveni in Uganda. So what we saw just days ago in Tanzania, where thousands of people were killed in protests, is not an election; it is a coronation. And Samia Suluhu has crossed the red lines that even the notorious authoritarian Magufuli never dared to cross in that country. And charging opposition leaders with capital offences, those are tactics that Kagame have been deploying on his opposition leaders, and also effectively eliminating all meaningful competition. These challenges we Rwandans have been dealing with for over now 3 decades. So this should sound familiar, because Tanzania is simply following something that is in place in Kigali and Kampala at the same time. So maybe to break it down, I would like to start with Rwanda, where I come from. Kagame has perfected what I call authoritarian theater, the performance of democracy without its substance in nature. So in Rwanda, Kagame score 90 plus. Recently, the recent election, he got 99.18. And in the 2017, he got, I think, 98.7. But this comes with a lot of opposition leaders going to jail, serving long terms, and also when you talk like for the case of Victoire Ingabire, the main opposition leader in Rwanda, spent more than 8 years in jail, and she's back in jail as we speak now. So think about when a president score 99%, 90, almost towards 100. Those are not what we call results for elections, and I think it also could justify the percentage we are seeing coming from the Tanzanian elections, the 98%. So still on the Rwandan side, by 2014, I think Rwanda had to silence nearly all critical debate, even on the internet. And the government stepped up to increase surveillance, and around the genocide commemoration period, and the country fear remains in, that you cannot discuss or have an independent political debate. And while journalists and activists goes to jail, and also at the same time, the government creating an environment where you cannot really practice politics as long as it's not aligned with the current government's wish. So, but this is something we have seen in Rwanda, and for many years now, and we have actually people have started to live with it and normalized it. So now, when you look at the Museveni model, because the Kagame model deal with the opposition by silencing them and arresting them and intimidating the population and making sure that the population cannot step up to its rights even if they are violated. And this is instilled depending on the nature of how Kagame managed Rwanda, because Rwanda is micromanaged, where at least in 3 households you will find a spy linked to the government. The government will create civil educations that brainwash citizens as young as 9 years old of age, and these will end up becoming the tools of the regime as they grow. And when you come to Uganda, where Museveni have been a president from 86 up to now, he have perfected what I think scholars call competitive authoritarianism, and the art of maintaining the appearance of democracy while systematically dismantling it. He's aligned Uganda with security priorities, something Kagame have also done, and particularly the U.S. counterterrorism operations in Somalia for Uganda, but also for Kagame, he have done the similar thing, but particularly helping to advance the European agendas and geopolitical interests in the region, the Great Lakes, and also Africa in general. As of now, Kagame is increasing his influence to the Western African countries and trying to bring it back in control, because we all know in the previous years, the France have lost control of the region in one way or another. So I think the NRM's strength isn't that it rigged enough to control everything, but flexible enough to absorb all opposition in the country, using corruption as a main tool to take control of the opposition. And people aren't voting the NRM, they are voting within the NRM. And the regime has successfully localized all political grievance with a simple party structure. So look at what happened with Bobby Wine, like in 2021 election, I think, where Museveni took his lowest ever share of the vote, marking Bobby Wine as one of the formidable national leaders. I think growing up, the regime's response was to escalating harassment, arbitrary arrests of opposition leaders who have really stood up, and violent assault to those who have refused to subscribe to its mechanism of control, and increasing of intimidation, which is even happening now as Uganda is heading to polls in I think in January 2026. So this now here is where it truly gets alarming that these aren't cases that are just aside in these countries, but they are actively collaborating with other leaders in the region to export these tactics, and it is growing. And this is how I find it very disturbing. You look in the previous years, we had people like Joel Mutawazi that were kidnapped in Kampala and taken back to Rwanda, and they are facing a lot of years in jail now. We had journalists killed, a Rwandan journalist exiled, killed in Kampala. And at the same time, we had a recent opposition leader in Uganda, Besigye, abducted, kidnapped from Nairobi. We had my friend Agatha here and Boniface Mwangi arrested in Dar es Salaam. Like the authoritarian regimes have learned a way to work together and support each other in what they do. And this is where we as the citizens and concerned citizens need to really step in and also collaborate in fighting whatever they are trying to build, because it is not something good for us as the population in East Africa. Otherwise, there is no way these countries are going to be safe for anyone. There is a lot of Rwandans that used to exile and go to Kenya, but it no longer feels safe. And Uganda is no longer feel safe for anyone exiling from Rwanda, considering this collaboration. So,
Thanks so much, Samuel. That's such a good point. And I think one of the things that's really interesting is hearing how many people in different countries are feeling the same trajectory, right?
yeah,
And I think one of the things that we need to bring home perhaps to people listening also is that when we get to a point where you develop that culture of impunity within the security forces, that the security forces are not just repressing people in uniform, they are operating outside of uniform. We have extralegal rendition. We have people being disappeared. In some cases in Uganda, in Kenya, people do not know where their family members are many months months after they disappeared, that this is a process of effectively states terrorizing their own citizens, but it's also a process of effectively undermining the rule of law and the willingness of the security forces to follow the rule of law. And the consequence of that is actually something that makes everybody unsafe and less safe, whether it's businesses, whether it's, international donors, journalists, citizens. Everybody is less safe when the security forces get into a habit of operating outside of legal constraints. And one of the big fears that I have is that in all three countries, I feel we're moving in that direction. And we've seen in the past, if we go back, say, in Kenya to the early 1990s, we know some of the consequences of those kinds of politics. And that's one of the things where I think everybody, whether they're Democrats or not, whether they believe in, the International Criminal Courts or not, whether they care about human rights or not, everybody has an incentive to try and make sure that we have security forces that follow the rule of law, because the implications are profound for all of us. But I want to just quickly move on and bring in a couple of people who haven't spoken yet, if that's okay. So, Chacha, I'm going to come to you next because you haven't spoken. And then Liberatus, if it's okay, I'm going to come back to you because I know that you had to leave us earlier. Come back and see if you want to add anything to the discussion. And Agatha, I'm going to come back to you because I know you got cut off. So starting with Chacha and then coming back to Liberatus and Agatha.
So I will have my presentation in two parts. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. It's good to have this platform. For anyone who followed Tanzania's politics, especially after the death of the late Magufuli, and by no stretch of imagination was he infallible. One thing that really stood out for me is the announcement of his death, which was done by Samia Suluhu Hassan. During the announcement of the death of the late president, Samia Hassan was not flanked by any, the echelons of the CCM Politburo. Neither was there, maybe cabinet secretaries or even, senior government administrators. And for me, that really sounded a bit off. But of course, there are rumors, and I'll treat them as rumors, that there were cracks within the party itself, whether to hand over power to Kassim Majaliwa Kassim, who was the prime minister then, and or to just give it to President Suluhu. Of course, Mabeo, who was the CDF then, Chief of Defense Forces, insisted on giving it to Suluhu. Now, fast forward, when she comes into office, a number of changes, we saw a number of changes, especially when it comes to defense, Tanzania Intelligence Security Service itself, as well as the National Police Service. There is a gentleman called Lieutenant General Kangile, who was the then Joint Chief of Staff of Tanzania People's Defense Forces. He was moved, what will be considered by many analysts, including myself, that was a demotion and was given an ambassadorial position. And that's how Othman comes in as they call him Munadimu, which is Joint Chief of Staff. So she was consolidating power, given that maybe she felt like, or maybe she had intelligence that her stay in power was not guaranteed, because maybe some members of the Politburo were not comfortable with her as the head of state. And then she promotes Nkunda to be the CDF. So basically, the two gentlemen are her appointee. When it comes to the Tanzania Intelligence and Security Service, two things happen. One, Tanzania since 1961 has had 12 chiefs of the TSS. But 4 of those have served under Suluhu. I think she was trying to see who could actually work with her and will be loyal to her. And that's why she made several changes. 2023, I think later 2023, she also did some cabinet reshuffle where the then foreign minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Stagomena Tax was moved to the Minister of Defense. So she knew what she was doing, and she was consolidating power using state apparatus, especially the security sector and the police. Camila Swambura, who was then the head of criminal investigation, becomes the IGP. So that's the first thing that she does. So anybody who expected, in spite of the disgruntled the sentiments that we saw in among the rank and file within the defense forces, especially given that some I will call them junior or mid-level military officers like Captain Tesha will come to say something that has never been said before. Really tells you that there was some bit of disgruntlement within the defense forces. But now, be it as it may, this has already happened, and sadly, people have lost lives, thousands of them. I hope it's not thousands. I just hope it's not thousands. I'm not saying that one is one too many, but I hope it's not thousands. But I think this conversation is, why is Tanzania going to? What next for Tanzania? So, as an observer, I like to draw from previous experiences. In 2009, after Ahmadinejad won those contested elections where thousands thronged the streets of Tehran and many other cities in Iran in support of Mossavi, quite a number of things happened. Now, the first thing that happened is that the state responded with extreme brutality. And the aftermath of that repression was that the government intensified its suppression of civil society, media, and political dissent. And opposition leaders specifically were placed under house arrest. Now, come closer home in Ethiopia, in 2005, when Meles Zenawi won in those disputed elections of 2005, one thing that really stood out was the fact that the government of the Prime Minister Meles Zenawi declared a state of emergency. Of course, we know over close to 200 people died in Ethiopia, specifically in Addis Ababa. Now, what followed after that repression was a decade, what followed after that crackdown was a decade of repression followed by crisis. Now, repression grew, and we've seen protests, especially by some Orma people, and of course we've seen this has grown to form some, what I'll call non-state actors challenging state authority, especially in the Tigray region. Now, if I look at that, especially and in Europe, I mean, you have your own case of Brussels with Alexander Lukashenko and the repression there, after being in power for, I think, close to 30 years, if I'm not wrong. Now, what is likely to happen in Tanzania, in my view, and I hope it doesn't happen, the hypothetical scenario, when you look at those examples I've given you, there is the immediate aftermath is going to be intensified, and I hope I'm wrong here, intensified repression and the consolidation of power. Now, the immediate response will mirror the patterns that I've mentioned. I've mentioned Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi, and then Iran, Ahmadinejad. You go to you go to Lukashenko, Alexander. Now, the state will move swiftly to ensure such challenges never happen again. We've seen that even with the mass, with the messages that the police have already sent to the people of the Republic of Tanzania. So there is likely to be a double down on security crackdown, targeting opposition specifically and any dissenting voices. Now, Tanzania, in my view, may end up become an authoritarian stability, much less what we have. Just the same thing we have in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is an illiberal democracy. There is a lot of repression and oppression. Media freedom is not there. So we might end up with a Tanzania akin to what is happening in Ethiopia, or say Rwanda. I hope there are any Rwandese on this platform. Maybe they can confirm. I mean, Rwanda has the highest number of opposition leaders incarcerated or even killed. Some of them have been shot even in Nairobi. So this is what's likely to happen. And to placate this, the negative sentiments towards the CCM party, they might double down on infrastructural development and economic development if they will sustain this 6%, 7%, and maybe perhaps 8%, and hoping that will help. But I don't think in the long term this is sustainable, in my view. And there is a possibility they might try to reach out to the opposition, maybe moderate quote-unquote opposition, to co-opt them, say NCCR Magweuzi, ACT Wazalendo, and many other political parties, so that they can have some semblance of creating an inclusive society. But I just hope I'm wrong, and they will release Tundu Lissu, but I highly doubt they will release Tundu Lissu, given what has already happened in Tanzania. Madam Samia Hassan Suluhu has fully consolidated her influence in the CCM party for now. And she did this rather by making sure that even the Secretary General, whom Magufuli had appointed then, Dr. Bashiru, was asked from the CCM party, and she brought someone who she will count on in terms of loyalty, Dr. Emmanuel Nchimbi, who is now the vice president. So I'm not so optimistic. I just hope I'm wrong, but we are likely to see more repressive acts targeted towards the opposition and any dissenting voice. Thank you very much, and I land.
Thanks so much. That was very insightful, and it's interesting to hear those strong perspectives. It also gives other people something they can come back to. So thanks so much for that. Abhishek, I'm going to come to you in a second, and then after that, I'm going to go to all of our speakers who are still on the call to wrap up. So Agatha Libradas, Joseph Wanjiru, I'm going to come back to you guys for a final word in a minute to give you the final say. But Abhishek, coming to you first, and then we'll go back to the speakers, and then we'll wrap up. Over to you, Abhishek. Can you hear me? Abhishai, are you there? Okay, I don't think we've got you there, Abhishai, so I'm going to go around our speakers. So I'll start, Agatha, with you, if that's okay. Then I'll come to you, Liberatus, and you, Joseph, and then you, Wanjiro. So Agatha, to you first. Final closing remarks as we start to draw this Twitter space to a close. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I think I'd come to an end of my submission, but to emphasize maybe is that we need to honor the thousands of people that have been killed. And we need to honor them by documenting this, by publishing it, by making sure the world knows the extent. Because I know right now everyone knows what happened, but the extent of this massacre. But also to continue pushing so that everyone is held accountable. I've been asked by many people from Tanzania to help verify the reports that some Ugandan soldiers were fighting in Tanzania, and it's really hard to verify. I just say that we will not probably get any hard evidence, but I am very sure that there's no doubt that is true. We have been seeing how the three dictators in East Africa protect each other, work together in a syndicated way. The case of Kizza Besigye being abducted from Nairobi is one of these cases. Maria was one of them there was an attempted abduction from Nairobi to Tanzania to also take her to Tanzania illegally. Then there was me and Boniface in Tanzania. Up to now, my government has never said anything, never, asked why crimes like those were committed against their citizen. Because we left Tanzania with no charge against us. No one told us we committed any crime, and even if we had, I tell people all the time that even rebels, we have rebels in jail here. We have a rebel at the ICC that even confessed to killing people in northern Uganda, but they are also entitled to processes. So even if I had committed any crime or Boniface, we should have been charged in courts of law. Tanzania has them. Or it could extradite us to Uganda and we are charged for whatever cause, but not to violate us in the manner that happened. But you come back and there's no government official in this country that is interested in knowing what happened, because for them it's good riddance. If they were not part of the plan, they were happy that happened. So this has been happening, and for President Museveni, for example, a success of young people, civilians on the streets against Samia in Tanzania would portend trouble for him in 2026, which is the election is just 2 months away. And that was very clear from apologists here attacking us who were writing about what was happening in Tanzania. Oh, you are outrage merchants, you you want chaos, you want whatever, and you're saying, but all of you people, have you been seeing disappearances of Tanzanians on a daily basis? Do you know that there are Tanzanians in prison for almost a year without a case being prosecuted against them? How do you remember to say this when people say we are tired and we are going to do whatever it takes and we are going to sacrifice whatever we have to sacrifice? But because that means that we can do this here, and they do not want it. The slogan of the NRM government, President Museveni's party, for this election is protecting the gains. And the gains are individual gains. They are gains as President Museveni, as his associates, as the hunger zone that benefit, that get these leftovers. They are not gains of Ugandans. So you have all these who are trying to protect those gains of corruption, those gains of, built out of grave human rights violations. You have people in Uganda that have been in jail for 5 years without any case, without any trial. It's just because they support the National Unity Platform. You have Kizza Besigye here who has been in jail for a year now. There's no trial that has ever been, no evidence, no nothing against him. They have refused to give him bail. You have Sam Mugumya who has disappeared. You have the two Kenyans, Nicholas Oyo and Bob Njagi, who disappeared here. Not disappeared, but were abducted by armed forces. We don't know whether they renditioned them to Kenya or they have them here. So these are people that are working together and have some people, some young people, unfortunately, on their side who will come to attack anyone who says, let us push back against this abuse, against this impunity. But I am glad that East African people are seeing through that, are continuing to push back regardless of whatever, awaits them. Like I said earlier, I am very sure that these Tanzanians went on the streets knowing they would kill them. By now, everyone had known that government of Samia is ruthless. But it's a tired population, very fed up, and which knows that even if we don't go in the streets, they will kidnap us and disappear us anyway, like the over 200 people that have been disappeared. So yes, I think all of us can play a part. Us who are not in Tanzania can publish. Those who are in Tanzania and can collect information, or out of Tanzania but have resources to collect information, we can work together to make sure that we continue this, the fight against these abuses that we've seen. Thank you very much. Thank you for this space. Yes, I am glad we had it. It has been, 5 days of heavy-heartedness, and maybe this was good to at least talk about it or listen to people from Tanzania and know that some people are still alive. When I say Tanzanian talking, I say, but how are they even alive? It's a miracle. Thank you once
Thanks,
again.
Agatha. And thanks, Agatha. I'm sure, people like you and others who are speaking here as well, who've sacrificed their own safety to raise solidarity with Tanzanians and who continue to do so will also be really important in enabling, people from Tanzania to move on and to understand that solidarity exists across borders will be really important for people who have suffered such, tremendous losses and shock. I'm sure there's a lot of people in trauma, and knowing that you are there and that others are there across borders will be really important for them in the healing process. So thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go to Liberatus next, and then to Joseph, and then to Wanjiru for the final words. Over to you, Liberatus.
Thank you, Nick. We all agree that there was no election, and election did not take place with all this being transpired. But I just want to stress out on a few things. Number one, justice for all those who being murdered, and it's clearly they were murdered by government agency. Like I said earlier, we do not have second amendments in Tanzania. We don't have right to bear arm, especially these big SMGs. People who are shooting, like literally shooting protester, and collateral damage was some people were not even protesting. We have seen people being shot outside their houses, outside their veranda. We have seen people shot on a motorcycle or on a bike. We have been shot. We have seen people shot everywhere. So this was more like trying to instill fear to people so they don't protest. So justice for all these people who have been murdered will be the key here. I understand that now as we speak, people are under threat. People are under threat, and the situation is dire because the government is trying to conceal the truth. Is trying to conceal the truth. They go to the mortuary, to the hospital, take all the bodies, and go and bury them. I just got some messages and pictures that the government is going to the hospitals, to the morgue, trying to take all the dead bodies and bury them secretly. So the situation is dire, and people are under threat. Yeah, I thought I should straight that. Another point is I understand there was a thought maybe Samia will call some opposition, try to harmonize the situation. That is not going to happen, and that's not the case here, guys. Like I said earlier, the process we had in Tanzania and all these things, this crisis, is not about a political party. It's not about Chadema. It's a people. It's a citizen. Samia has systematically suppressed everybody, every individual who said anything against her. She has suppressed the region leaders. She has suppressed business people. She has suppressed the opposition. She has suppressed the non-profit organization. Everyone who said something against her has been suppressed. We have Father Kitima, Catholic father. He was attacked because he was talking about electoral system, how unfair and unjust our electoral system is. This is a Catholic priest who was brutalized to date. There's no investigation, no arrest, no any statement on what's happening on the investigation. We have Bishop Gwajima, who came out. Bishop Gwajima is a CCM member and a member of parliament. He is on one of the highest rank CCM meetings. They call NEC. He came out, speak about abductions, speak about the truth, and he literally told us the person who is responsible with these abductions and kidnapping civilians is Samia's son, Abdul. And he clearly said that the people who are abducting these people, they have this immunity and impunity in the highest level. Our intelligences people, whenever they try to do something about these people, these mercenaries, they are stopped. They cannot do anything. That's why one of the speakers here earlier said about the Tanzania intelligence security officer being fired. Also is fired because we don't know why Samia had like 3 different Tanzania intelligence security bosses just relinquish, just get out from the institution. So we have systematic oppression under Samia, and she has consolidated the power, and it's not going to look good. On the point that Samia will maybe try to harmonize this situation by picking few groups of people like opposition. This is not about opposition, guys. It's a citizens against Samia. It's a citizens against the government. It's a citizens against CCM. And when we try to find a solution, either or to see the way forward, we have to understand this perspective. This is not about political party. It's about the citizens. And I'm so worried that because there's so much anger piled up to the citizens because almost in every neighborhood, somebody got shot, somebody got killed. In almost every neighbor, every region, somebody got shot, somebody got killed. So we have this anger, and I'm worried that if the world does not act now, it's going to be a big problem in Tanzania because this is not going to be controllable. We cannot control this. So my call today is, I understand there's a lot of important people listening here. Please do your best to spread the word that Tanzania is not safe now. It is absolutely not safe because Samia continues to crack down each and everyone they think was protesting. Each and everyone they think they're protesting. There's a collateral damage, like I said. Some people got shot, got killed in front of their houses. This being said, I really appreciate Nikki and Jeffrey for this great space, and I hope we'll be talking some more. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and absolutely, we will we'll definitely keep the conversation going and maybe look to have, another discussion about this and some of the dimensions we've been talking about in a few weeks' time. Thanks so much for that. Okay, Joseph, over to you, and then Wenjiro, and we'll close.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think the most important thing is, I know people who lost their loved ones, like everyone, if they can at least try to find some means for accountability. I think this is a very important thing that we should push, all of us. Anyone listening, at least trying to take some actions to make sure that this will just not pass this way. Someone said, and I think rightly, that what will happen, because some people are saying about CCM, why have we reached the place that now we are? Is because of many years of building a state of terror that we celebrate mediocrity. You are stupid, the better. You rise in ranks because you are stupid. You are smart is the closest way you can go to hell. Now, who in CCM can challenge? Some are tried. Pole abducted. Someone mentioned about Gwajima. He just said, please, let's stop abductions. They closed the entire church in Tanzania. So this is what has brought, because the president is so powerful, is like the state. And I think we need to dismantle this system to make sure that everyone is accountable. State democracy is built when those rulings are accountable to the people. When government is the result of the people, is people who put the government in power. Did the people put this government in power, at least the one sworn in today? No. And I think everyone should try to make some efforts to make sure that they will not be happy with what they did. Is the crime? This is it. And I think it should be treated as such. And the other things we need to reflect, because someone said, which I think again is right, if this goes unpunished, mentioning about Ethiopia, it can continue now becoming, a stable terror. Actually, Tanzania has been a stable terror forever. So we have never been a democracy. It has been many years of a single party with a multi-party image. Why is the government now using all the force we have seen in 2024, abducting Agatha and many others, Lissu, and disqualifying the opposition entirely, Chadema, from participating? Because at least for the first time, we had the real opposition. We have had 30 years of a massaging opposition built by its systems to perfect an image of the multipartism that was forced after the fall of the Berlin. Now, at least for the first time, we have a real opposition that can challenge power, which really means it. Then the state has stepped down with its 4 legs. So we have never been a democracy. We have been a stable terror. Now, this is likely to increase that, if particularly the repression succeed in dismantling resistance. So I think the hope that we have to create is to make sure that there is accountability so that no one can push further to terror. If we fail to make sure that Samia and whoever is behind this, what happens, then it can be a terror forever. And I think this is not a dream for anyone. The system that we have had in Tanzania, which is very historical, the Uganda people, it was, this is historical. Nyerere transferring something to Uganda, it went to Rwanda. We are speaking here about Zimbabwe, is a kind of terror whose industry has been in Tanzania forever. So it has been looked peaceful, stable, but selling lies, when Agatha were abducted and others, they were like, oh, some sort of like people interfering. And actually, Samia said, there are people from the neighboring countries who dismantle their country, they want to dismantle ours. Use all the power to make sure that this will not happen. Then, with the opposition trying to travel, Samia said again in public, we have directed that opposition should not be taken out. So if anything rot, we are all in. She was preparing for this. Then now she come 2 days ago and say, please, security, do what you can to make sure that there is stability. What do they do is to shoot to kill. I think there must be some way to make sure that the system of international humanitarian law at least work. It's people like this who should be in jail, not Samir, not Lissu, people who are trying to just change the status and the legal system of state to make sure that we have a democracy. The last one, I think we appreciate for everyone speaking out, because I think this is what the people who have lost their loved ones want. They want anyone to shout. They want anyone to at least do something better for them, to not keep quiet. And I think this is very important.
Thank you so much for that. That's a powerful moment on which to end. I'm going to come to Wanjiru next, and then Bibi Tidi Voice. I'll come to you last. I just saw that you're still with us, so I'll come to you for the final say. So Wanjiru first, and then Bibi Tidi Voice. I'll come to you next.
Thank you so much, Nick. And thank you everyone for being here. Well, what to even say? As I started to begin with, there was somebody who responded to me. I would maybe take a minute to also appreciate Agatha for responding back as a fellow Ugandan. The reason why you might ask why I suggested going on the ICC route is because the African Union had the audacity to congratulate Samia for the fair elections, and that's how they said in quotes. The African Union president did congratulate her. How are we going to trust the African Union courts to prosecute Samia Suluhu if they're the same people who actually congratulated her on the first day of being announced a winner? I as Wanjiru, I have no trust in the African Union courts. I have no trust in the East African law courts. That's why I suggested if we people of good faith could actually, submit a memoranda or submit to the prosecutor of ICC, the International Criminal Court. I know nothing might happen, but it's going to be for a record. The people of Tanzania, they're going to lead in their history that there was a woman who actually murdered our people when they were asking for reforms. This is gonna be written in history. It's gonna be rubber stamped in history. Right now, I think the reason I will also say reason number 2 why I suggested is because the same people, the police in Tanzania are also saying that those were foreigners who came and disrupted our peace. This nation is always a nation of peace. They're going to cancel the history of what happened in the last 5 days. We don't have evidence. We don't have, the internet was shut down. Everything happened. If we do not make sure that history or that part of animosity is not recorded or is not in the record in the International Criminal Court, the entire world is going to start believing that what happened actually was something good. Actually, that woman is trying. So that's why for the part of the recording part, I would suggest that we go to the website and actually make sure our voices are heard. Submit the evidences, submit the facts. What happened? Fellow Tanzanian, fellow Kenyans, the world watched, the world heard. Can we go there and just write what happened, because that goes a long way. I remember I'm a Kenyan, and in 2007, 2008, there were two people who were, they were taken to the ICC, and we lead them every other day. We remind them, like, 18 years ago, you forced a lot of Kenyans to be internally displaced. You forced people to be killed. A lot of people were injured. They got traumatized. It was so bad. I also heard about the Tanganyika and Zanzibar case. Like, it was purely genocide. If only people from Tanganyika were actually killed and people from Zanzibar were spared. It's pure genocide. These are the things that we cannot actually overlook. These are the things that should actually be taken to the International Criminal Court. And maybe we can try East African Court, even though I don't have faith in them, but we can still have faith in something that can be done. To maybe finalize as well, I would also suggest that the women here never feel like your voice is small, never feel defeated, never feel like you cannot speak for yourself or speak about what is happening. I know Samia is a fellow woman and she did what she did, but that doesn't mean that women cannot be leaders or women cannot be respected, or women now should not speak because a fellow woman, killed people. Never feel that, because it's not you, it's her. We have people who have bad, I would say, for example, Museveni is not a woman, or Ruto is not a woman, but what they have done in their nation, it's much worse than even what happened the few days. So people who are coming and saying, this is why women belong to the kitchen, this is why women should never be leaders, women who are here, will you feel empowered? And let us make sure that we actually fight this woman to make sure that she makes an example of people who were bad and they were persecuted. And any woman here vying for a leadership position, make sure when you're in that position, you represent each and every woman, because we have a long fight that we are fighting, and we have to represent and be known that women can lead, women can actually remove this entire East African nation from dictatorship to mentorship. They can make sure the girl child who is getting born today looks forward and say, I want to be a woman who liberates Africa from dictatorship. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thanks so much for that. Okay, BBT Voice, coming to you to bring it home for us tonight. I can't hear you right now. I'm not sure if other people can. Let's give it another moment and see if we can get the audio. Okay, well, while we try and get the audio, maybe I'll start saying a few thank yous and goodbyes. First of all, thank you to our brilliant inspirational panel. I think it's really important to have these conversations across the region. And one thing that has really inspired me tonight is, how much people in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda know about what is happening in each other's countries and understand the connection between them. And I think that's a really important foundation for resistance moving forward. So thank you to everyone who's spoken. Thank you to everyone who's joined us and everyone who's made a comment. Thank you so much to our team. The Resistance Bureau is a big team. Thank you to my friend and brother, Jeff Smith, to Mentani Molotwa, to our broader team, to Peter Dorry and to Ndonwa Masaka. You're all brilliant, and these events would not happen without you. So thank you so much, everybody. And I'll just see BBTD Voice, just give one more try. Can you have a go to see if we can hear you? Because it would be wonderful if we could hear you last. I'm still not hearing it, unfortunately. Perhaps if you put a quick message to one of us in WhatsApp, we could read it out for you, because I would like you to have the final word. But unfortunately, I can't hear you right now. Just to say, for everybody who's with us, please remember that you can find us online, the Resistance Bureau. Not only can you find us at theresistancebureau.com and have a look at the resources we have there, the team and so on. But you can also see all of the episodes that we've done. And we've done episodes on a lot of the things that we've talked about today. We've had episodes on the era of youth rebellions. We've had Twitter spaces on the protests in Kenya after the finance bill, in elections across the region and so on. So a lot of the things that we've discussed today, there are shows on the Resistance Bureau website that you can go and check out and hopefully be able to get more information. We also did a show back in September 2024 on why so many opposition leaders are in jail in Tanzania. So please do go there. Loads of brilliant speakers from across Africa on that website sharing their perspectives. Baby Titty Voice, over to you.
Okay, I guess I can be heard now, if I'm clear.
Yes, there we go. We've done it.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Okay,
Thank you so
over
much.
to
I'm
you.
sorry for the technicalities. What I'm trying to put on board is that one of the things which is very painful to us is the foreign armies in our land, because it seems like our land have been invaded, and that is something we are taking it very seriously, and we need really to hold those people who made that happen accountable, because that is something which has disturbed our sovereignty, but we need to address it. The second thing is the misinformation. We have the government which is giving a misinformation to the people that nobody has died, nobody has been injured. Those people who have been injured or are foreign nationals. That kind of misinformation should be addressed, and people in Tanzania must be taken into accountable must be accountable for the killings, murdering, and the genocide which has been committed. The last thing I want to put in place is that there should be no cover-up on the people and the numbers. We are going to dig it out and to tell the world what happened. I believe it is time now for CCM to be declared as a terrorist party and be banned once and forever. Thank you.